Hi, this is michellesam from Sammy Wong's Kitchen. Today we'll be discussing the essential equipment and utensils for Chinese cooking. As everybody knows, the most important equipment for stir frying would be the wok. I have had questions about wok buying and what to look for in a wok. So here are my tips. I am not endorsing any particular company's wok. First thing you need to think about is size and how many people you're going to be cooking for on average. I have here a very small 8-inch wok which might cook perhaps a 1 serving meal at a time. So in my opinion, this is not very functional. Here is a 13-inch wok, which is good for family of 4. This one is an 18-inch wok, which is really huge. And actually, this was used during my college summer when my now husband and I did a Chinese cooking stint. So that is really more of a commercial wok rather than a household wok. And this one is a 14-inch wok, which is what I normally use. So the type of wok that you will be choosing will really be determined by your cooktop surface. If you have an electric stove, that narrows down the types of woks that you use. And pretty much what you then need is a flat bottomed wok versus a round bottomed wok. Okay. Another thing to consider is the type of material that it's made of. So let's think about stir frying. Stir frying really needs high heat. And what we need to do is to be able to have a type of wok that can handle the high heat, but not only able to handle the high heat, but also be able to maintain that heat. So aluminum, for example, is a great conductor of heat. However, it is very thin, at least the types of woks I've seen. And so it's not going to be able to maintain the heat when you keep adding in new ingredients. And what will happen is that the temperature will suddenly decrease, and then it'll take a while for the temperature to rise again and cause you to overcook some of the food. So thin aluminum is not a good material to consider. And worse yet would be one that claims to have a coated non-stick surface. With today's coating technology, the last thing you want is a surface that is coated, because if you look at the actual instructions, they will tell you that do not use high heat with this particular wok, and you cannot stir fry on low heat. The traditional woks are usually made out of cast iron or carbon steel. Now, cast iron is really very heavy, but it does season well, and seasoning a wok means actually treat it with oil so that in essence it behaves like a non-stick surface. Cast iron is great because it does handle the heat well, and it also maintains the heat, but it tends to be really heavy. Carbon steel is slightly lighter than cast iron, but it does require more seasoning, and it is not as thick. As I said earlier, seasoning does require you to oil your wok, and I just did that with this one. What I did was heated it up on the stove, and then when it was really hot, poured some oil on the wok, and then used a paper towel to rub it around the wok and then that kind of absorbs the oil into the actual metal. But you need to keep seasoning your wok occasionally. With the carbon steel woks, these do tend to rust, so make sure you dry them thoroughly after washing, and preferably wash them without dish soap, just using a hard bristle brush to scrape out any of the food sediment. Rinse it with water and dry it properly. If there are rust spots that form on the bottom, that's no problem. Just wipe it with a wet paper towel and reseason again. Now for the wok shape. So as you can see here, I have two flat bottom woks. This particular wok, the slope of the wok is pretty gradual, and it has a smaller surface area in terms of the flat part here. This wok has a large bottom surface area, and what I like is I like the rounded bottoms, because what happens now is that when you place oil in a dome shaped wok, you have a lot more oil at the bottom that you can stir fry with. So you are using a lot less oil than if you had a flat surface. Look for a wok that has a gradual slope versus a steep slope. And the reason for the gradual slope is that sometimes when you stir frying, you're going to have certain ingredients that you fried, and what you want to do is put them off to the side while cooking the main ingredient that is closest to the heat. But if you have a wok that has a steep slope, it's very difficult to actually keep your ingredients on the side because the slope is so steep. So the weight of the wok. The thin aluminum woks are much lighter than the carbon steel, which are somewhat lighter than the cast iron. But for me, I am not using the handle to toss the ingredients on the stove because I don't have strong wrists. So that is not something I needed to consider in my wok decision. Now for handles. As you can see, we have handles that look like this. This is what they call loop handles, and these are called stick handles. I prefer the stick handles. When you are using the wok with loop handles, you really need to make sure that you have a towel to hold the handles because it does get very hot. So I tend to just go with woks that have the stick handles. Now, if you're going to be buying a wok that has a rounded bottom, what you do need to get is a wok ring. As you can see, this particular wok ring has just two large holes in the back, and there's nothing here in the front. Now, most wok rings that are sold separately have vent holes that are equidistant from each other. And what you need to do is make sure that when you position that on your stove, that your vent ring is not directly underneath your handle. Because what happens is if you put your vent right by your handle, you get this. You start burning your handles. And as you can see, this particular hand, there was a handle here and it got completely burnt off. When you look for wok rings, make sure that it fits correctly. So if I place this down and I place my wok here, you will notice that it goes pretty low down so that the flame can reach the bottom of your wok. What you don't want is a wok ring that is too small for your wok. So in this case, you have this wok ring here, but your wok is sitting pretty high up from the flame. So you're not going to be able to maximize the heat. So make sure you get the proper size wok as well as the wok ring. Now for the wok lids. There are flat lids and then there are domed lids. So for this particular wok, it came with a glass lid that would fit directly on the wok. Now what I prefer is a domed lid, and I like this because what happens is you can have extra space on the top, so you can use the wok not only for stir frying, but you can also use this as a steamer. So what do you need for steaming in a wok? These are steaming trivets, and basically they just go down onto your wok like this. You will then put your dish on top, and then you'll be able to place your lid on top without it interfering. If I had a flat glass lid, I would not be able to steam that dish. Now, this particular steaming trivet, they come in different heights. So depending on the height of your wok, you can decide what size you need to get. Now, if you don't have a steaming trivet, what you can do, which I learned from my mom back in South Africa, is you just use a water chestnut can where you can open both sides of the can, place it down here, and be very careful because you're going to have to place your dish securely on your wok, and then you'll be able to cover your dish. So the domed lid is a little more multifunctional than your flat glass lid. A few other basic utensils for Chinese cooking, especially for stir fry, would be your ladle and your spatula. And if you do a lot of steamed dumplings, I would also recommend getting a bamboo steamer, and they usually come where they're stackable. And the bamboo steamer is better than some metal steamers because with the metal steamers, the steam tends to condense. And with the condensation, those water droplets fall onto your dumplings, and sometimes they just make your dumplings or bowls soggy. So that is one advantage of having a bamboo steamer. However, the disadvantage of the bamboo steamer is that you have to really be careful, make sure that you do have water in your wok, because if not, sometimes you'll have a casualty, and the bamboo steamer will start to actually burn. So that is definitely a disadvantage. That's pretty much it for Chinese cooking. There's probably a few other things, but in order to get by for stir fry and a few steamed dishes, this is pretty much all you need. So if this was helpful to you, please like this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thanks.